Tunde sat on the edge of his bed, strumming his old guitar. The warm, humid air of Lagos wafted through the open window, carrying with it the sounds of the bustling city. He closed his eyes, letting the music transport him to a world where he was not just Tunde, a high school student, but Tunde, the famous musician. His heart beat in time with the rhythm, each note a step closer to his dream. The school day had been long and tiresome, filled with equations and historical dates. But here, in his small room, Tunde found solace and purpose. That evening, as he practiced, his best friends Jade and Emeka burst into the room. "Tunde, you have to hear this beat I came up with," Jade exclaimed, holding a small keyboard. Emeka followed, carrying his drumsticks. Together, they improvised, creating a melody that filled the room with energy and excitement. It was in that moment, surrounded by his friends, that Tunde realized they had something special. This was the beginning of their journey, a journey that would take them from the dusty streets of Lagos to the bright lights of fame. They decided then and there to form a band, vowing to stick together no matter what challenges lay ahead. The following weeks were a blur of rehearsals and excitement. Tunde, Jade, and Emeka spent every free moment perfecting their sound. Word spread quickly around their school about the new band, and soon they were asked to perform at a local event. The night of their first gig arrived, and the nerves were palpable. Tunde's heart raced as he stepped onto the small stage, the spotlight blinding him momentarily. He took a deep breath, strummed his guitar, and began to sing. The crowd's applause was deafening, and for the first time, Tunde felt the thrill of performing in front of an audience. Their performance was a hit, and they were approached by a man named Mr. Bello, a local record producer. Tunde and his friends could hardly believe their luck. This was the break they had been waiting for. They met with Mr. Bello the next day to discuss the details, their excitement barely contained. The journey to fame had officially begun, but little did they know, it would come with its own set of challenges and lessons. The band entered the recording studio with a mix of excitement and trepidation. None of them had ever been inside a professional studio before, and the sight of the high-tech equipment was both intimidating and inspiring. Mr. Bello introduced them to the sound engineer, a stern but kind man named David, who would be helping them with their first single. They spent hours recording, re-recording, and tweaking their song until it sounded just right. Tunde's voice, Jade's beats, and Emeka's rhythms blended perfectly, creating a sound that was uniquely theirs. Days turned into weeks as they worked tirelessly on their music. The studio became their second home, and they grew more confident with each session. However, the pressure to succeed began to take its toll. Tunde found himself clashing with Emeka over creative differences, and Jade often played the role of peacemaker. It was a tough learning curve, but through these challenges, they learned the importance of communication and compromise. Despite the occasional disagreements, their bond grew stronger, and their music became more cohesive. The day of their single release finally arrived. Tunde, Jade, and Emeka gathered around a small radio in Tunde's living room, eagerly awaiting the first play of their song. When it finally came on, they could hardly contain their excitement. Hearing their music on the radio was surreal, a dream come true. Calls and messages from friends and family flooded in, congratulating them on their achievement. It was a moment of triumph, but also one that brought new challenges and responsibilities. As their song gained popularity, they started receiving invitations to perform at various events. Balancing schoolwork with their burgeoning music career became increasingly difficult. Tunde struggled to keep up with his studies, and his grades began to slip. His parents, though proud of his musical success, were concerned about his future. Tunde realized he needed to find a balance between his education and his passion. It was a tough lesson, but one that would ultimately make him stronger and more determined. With their single climbing the local charts, Tunde and his bandmates found themselves thrust into the spotlight. They were invited to perform on TV shows and at bigger venues, experiencing the thrills and pressures of fame. The attention was exhilarating, but it also brought unexpected challenges. Tunde found it difficult to cope with the constant scrutiny and the demands on his time. Fans wanted to know everything about them, and the media often exaggerated or twisted their words. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting interview, Tunde confided in Jide and Emeka. "I didn't realize fame would be so overwhelming," he admitted. Jide nodded in agreement, while Emeka added, "We need to remember why we started this in the first place, our love for music." They resolved to stay grounded and true to themselves, focusing on their passion rather than the distractions of fame. This decision helped them navigate the turbulent waters of their rising popularity and reminded them of the bond that had brought them together. As the band's popularity continued to grow, the pressures of success began to take a toll on their friendship. Tunde noticed a change in Jide, who had become increasingly distant and preoccupied. Emeka, too, seemed more irritable and less enthusiastic about rehearsals. The grueling schedule of performances, interviews, and studio sessions left little time for relaxation or reflection. Tunde often found himself longing for the simple days when they were just a group of friends making music in his bedroom. One evening, after a particularly intense argument over their next song, Tunde decided it was time to address the tension. He called a meeting at his house, and they sat down to talk openly about their feelings. Jide admitted that he was struggling with the pressure to constantly produce new music, while Emeka confessed that he missed the fun they used to have. Tunde shared his fears of losing their friendship to the demands of their career. It was a difficult conversation, but it brought them closer and helped them understand the importance of supporting each other through the highs and lows. In the midst of their rising fame, Tunde found himself falling for a girl named Ada. She was smart, kind, and had a smile that could light up a room. They met at one of the band's performances, and Tunde was instantly smitten. However, balancing a budding relationship with his demanding music career was no easy feat. Ada was understanding, but the constant rehearsals and performances often left little time for them to be together. One night, after a particularly long day in the studio, Tunde arrived late to their date. Ada was waiting patiently, but Tunde could see the disappointment in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Ada," he said, taking her hand. "It's just that things have been so hectic with the band." Ada smiled softly and replied, "I understand, Tunde. Just promise me you'll always make time for us." Tunde nodded, vowing to do better. As Tunde's relationship with Ada grew, he faced new challenges in balancing his commitments. His bandmates, especially Mecca, felt that Tunde was becoming distracted. The band had always been their priority. And now, with Tunde's attention divided, tensions began to rise. During one rehearsal, Emeka finally voiced his frustrations. "Tunde, we need you to be fully present. This band is our dream, and we can't afford to lose focus now." Tunde felt torn between his love for Ada and his loyalty to his friends. He realized that he needed to find a way to balance both aspects of his life. After a long conversation with Ada, who reassured him of her support, Tunde approached his bandmates. "I know I've been distracted, but I promise you the band is still my priority," he said earnestly. Together, they worked out a schedule that allowed Tunde to devote time to both his relationship and the band, strengthening their bond and commitment to each other. With their single still climbing the charts, the band started receiving offers from major record labels. Mr. Bello arranged meetings with several industry executives, and Tunde, Jide, and Emeka found themselves in unfamiliar territory. The business side of the music industry was complex and often intimidating. They had to navigate contracts, negotiate terms, and make decisions that could impact their future. After much deliberation, the band signed a deal with the reputable record label. They were thrilled to begin working on their first full-length album. The recording sessions were intense but also incredibly rewarding. They collaborated with talented producers and songwriters. During one meeting, a particularly aggressive executive tried to pressure them into signing a contract on the spot. Tunde, sensing something was off, asked for time to review the terms. The executive's demeanor changed, revealing the importance of staying cautious and informed. They decided to seek legal advice.
ensuring they understood every detail before making any commitments. This experience taught them the importance of being prudent and protecting their interests, even in the face of tempting opportunities.